I'm 56 years old, and my name is Lois. Throughout my entire life, I've put my daughter Amanda first, making sacrifices after my 15-year marriage to Greg ended. I raised her alone, working multiple jobs, skipping meals, and postponing dreams. When Amanda called to share her wedding news, I was overjoyed until she explained the conditions. My daughter told me I could come to her wedding, but asked if I'd mind sitting at a separate table so her stepfather could have the spotlight. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your dignity. I met Greg during my sophomore year of college. He was charming, ambitious, and had the kind of smile that made my heart skip a beat. We were young and in love, convinced we would build an extraordinary life together. After graduation, we married in a small ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who believed as we did that our love would withstand anything. 3 years into our marriage, Amanda was born. The moment I held her in my arms, I knew my life had changed forever. She had Greg's blue eyes and my stubborn chin, a perfect combination of both of us. Those early years were beautiful, despite the normal struggles of young parents balancing careers and childcare. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in a good school district, planning for Amanda's future while building our own. As Amanda grew into a curious, bright little girl, I noticed changes in Greg. The late nights at the office became more frequent. His emotional availability dwindled until conversations felt forced. When Amanda was 7, he started missing her school events, claiming work emergencies. I made excuses for him, both to Amanda and myself, wanting desperately to preserve our family. The truth revealed itself when Amanda was 10. A misplaced receipt led to questions which led to more questions, which eventually led to Greg confessing his affair with Jessica, a newer colleague at his accounting firm. The affair had been going on for nearly 2 years. The betrayal cut deep, not just for me, but for our daughter, who couldn't understand why Daddy was suddenly packing suitcases. The divorce was messy and painful. Greg wanted it over quickly so he could move forward with Jessica, who was already talking about marriage. I fought for fair financial support for Amanda, knowing single parenthood would strain my teacher's salary. The settlement provided minimal child support that rarely arrived on time and required constant follow-up. We had to sell our family home. I still remember Amanda sobbing as she packed her childhood bedroom, confused about why we had to leave while Daddy got to stay in a new, bigger house with Jessica. We moved to a small 2-bedroom apartment across town, and I took on tutoring and weekend retail work to make ends meet. Those first months were the hardest. Amanda's grades slipped as she adjusted to the new reality. She'd cry herself to sleep, asking what she'd done wrong to make Daddy leave. I would hold her, assuring her none of this was her fault, while swallowing my own tears and exhaustion. While I scrambled to create stability, Greg quickly married Jessica in a lavish ceremony that Amanda attended as flower girl. I helped her prepare for it, brushed her hair, zipped up the expensive dress Greg had bought, and sent her off with a smile that I maintained until the door closed behind her. Then I collapsed on the couch and cried for hours. Despite my personal pain, I made sure Amanda maintained a relationship with her father. I spoke positively about Greg in front of her, encouraged their weekend visits, and never used her as a messenger or weapon. When Greg would cancel last minute, I'd quickly create alternative plans to minimize her disappointment. When she'd return from his house with stories about the fun they had, I'd listen enthusiastically while ignoring the ache in my chest. I remember one night particularly clearly. Amanda had the lead in her school play, and both Greg and I were supposed to attend. 10 minutes before curtain, he texted that he couldn't make it due to work. Amanda, already in costume, looked around anxiously as other kids waved to both their parents. I filmed her performance, applauded louder than anyone, and then stayed up until 2 in the morning helping her create a special copy to send to her father, who promised he'd watch it right away. I later discovered he never did. That became the pattern of our lives. I was the constant, the foundation, the parent who showed up, while Greg dipped in and out as his schedule and new family allowed. I was there for every fever, every heartbreak, every triumph, and every ordinary Tuesday. I built my entire life around giving Amanda the security and love she deserved, even when it meant setting aside my own needs and dreams. Within a year of their marriage, Greg and Jessica welcomed twins, a boy and girl, who became Amanda's half-siblings. While Amanda had to adjust to sharing a bedroom with storage boxes in our apartment, Greg and Jessica purchased a 5-bedroom house in an exclusive neighborhood with a pool and home theater room. Their Christmas cards showed a picture-perfect blended family, with Jessica's parents often visiting from their wealthy enclave in Florida. Greg's career flourished with Jessica's social connections. Her father, a partner at a prestigious law firm, introduced Greg to clients who accelerated his rise at the accounting firm. Meanwhile, I continued teaching 5th grade, taking on additional responsibilities at school for small stipends and working retail during summers to make ends meet. There were nights I skipped dinner so Amanda could have enough to eat. I became an expert at creative budgeting shopping sales and finding free community activities. When Amanda needed new clothes, I would hunt through thrift stores for brand names her classmates wore. When she needed school supplies, I would use my teacher discount and then spread the purchases across multiple credit cards that I struggled to pay down. Despite these efforts, our financial reality remained stark. Amanda began noticing the differences between her 2 homes more acutely as she entered middle school. While I saved for months to buy her a basic phone, Greg presented her with the latest iPhone during a weekend visit. When I planned a special birthday party at the local pizza place with 5 friends, Greg followed it with a trip to Six Flags with 10 friends, complete with professional photography and custom t-shirts. I remember one Tuesday evening when Amanda returned from her weekend with Greg. She walked into our apartment, looked around with new eyes, and asked, "Why is our place so small? Jessica says you could get a better job if you really tried." The words stung, but I recognized they came from a 13-year-old's limited perspective. I gently explained that different families have different resources and that I was doing my absolute best. That night, after she went to bed, I applied for yet another side job, grading standardized tests online. The summer before high school, Amanda's orthodontist recommended braces. My insurance covered only a portion, leaving thousands I couldn't afford. When I approached Greg about splitting the uncovered costs, he argued it was a cosmetic issue that could wait. 3 weeks later, after Amanda mentioned it during a visit, Jessica took her to a premium orthodontist who offered invisible aligners at twice the price. Greg paid in full and made sure Amanda knew he had taken care of it when my solution wasn't good enough. I'll never forget helping Amanda pack for her first high school dance. As she tried on dresses, she casually mentioned that Jessica had offered to take her shopping for something more current than what we'd found on sale. I smiled and told her that sounded like fun, then excused myself to the bathroom where I cried silently before returning with the same supportive expression. For her 16th birthday, I saved for 6 months to buy Amanda a used car, a reliable sedan with good safety ratings. The weekend before her birthday, Greg and Jessica surprised her with a brand new SUV. Amanda was so excited she called me immediately from their driveway. I congratulated her enthusiastically, then cancelled the appointment with the used car dealer and used the money to pay down credit card debt instead. Throughout these years, I noticed Amanda gradually spending more time at her father's house. The regular weekends expanded to include many weeknights for study groups with neighborhood friends. Holidays that had traditionally been split began to favor Greg's home, where extended family gatherings offered more excitement than our quiet celebrations. Jessica worked particularly hard to win Amanda's affection. She involved her in the twins' lives, positioning Amanda as the admired older sister. She took Amanda shopping, introduced her to salon treatments I couldn't afford, and cultivated a friends relationship that included sharing celebrity gossip and binge-watching trendy shows. One Thanksgiving, when Amanda was 17, I overheard her on the phone with a friend describing her plans. I'm at my mum's on Thursday, but the real Thanksgiving is Saturday at my dad and Jessica's. Her family comes from Florida and they have it catered with like 30 people and a chocolate fountain. I served our traditional meal with a smile 2 days later, pretending I hadn't heard how it ranked in her mind. Despite these painful moments, I remained committed to providing Amanda with emotional stability. I attended every school event, helped with college applications, maintained an interest in her friends and activities, and created a home environment where she could always find acceptance and support. When jealousy or resentment threatened to overwhelm me, I would remind myself that Amanda deserved relationships with all her parents, regardless of the uneven playing field. Yet, watching my daughter gradually drift toward the life Greg and Jessica provided filled me with complicated emotions. I was proud of my accomplishments as a single mother, yet society rarely celebrated the parent who simply showed up every day. The truth was, I couldn't compete with luxury vacations and designer clothes, but I hoped someday Amanda would recognize the different but equally valuable things I had given her. Amanda's academic achievements opened doors to several prestigious universities. When acceptance letters arrived, including one from her dream school, I was ecstatic for her future, even while privately calculating how I could possibly help with tuition. I met with financial aid counselors, researched scholarships, and ultimately took out parent loans that would follow me into retirement. When I shared the financial plan with Greg, he agreed to contribute, but at a lower percentage than our incomes would suggest was fair. Still, I was grateful for any support that would help Amanda graduate with less debt. During family weekend, her freshman year, I drove 5 hours to campus, bringing homemade cookies and decorations for her dorm room. I arrived to find Greg, Jessica, and the twins already there, having flown in and booked rooms at the expensive hotel near campus. Amanda had arranged a dinner reservation for all of us, putting me in the awkward position of either declining or stretching my credit card limit even further. I chose the latter, sitting quietly, as Greg entertained the table with stories, and Jessica took charge of ordering for everyone. Later that evening, walking back to my budget motel, while the rest of them returned to their hotel, I called my sister, crying. "She's embarrassed by me," I confessed. I saw her face when she introduced me to her roommate's parents. They asked what I did, and before I could answer, she jumped in to mention that her dad is a partner at his firm. My sister listened patiently before reminding me that teenagers often go through phases of pulling away before recognizing a parent's value. As semesters passed, Amanda's visits home became briefer and less frequent. Her winter breaks were split between our apartment and ski trips with Greg's family. Spring breaks were spent at Jessica's parents' beach house in Florida. Even summer breaks were fractured, with Amanda taking internships and traveling with friends whose parents, like Greg, could subsidize such experiences. Our phone calls grew shorter, often interrupted because she was heading out with friends or needed to study. Meanwhile, her social media showed frequent gatherings at Greg and Jessica's home, where she appeared comfortable and integrated with her half-siblings, now in elementary school, and clearly adoring their big sister. During her junior year, Amanda called to tell me she wouldn't be coming home for Thanksgiving as planned. "Jessica's whole family is flying in and they really want me there," she explained. "Plus, Dad got tickets for us to see that Broadway show I've been wanting to see." I heard the excitement in her voice and told her I understood completely, though I had already purchased ingredients for her favorite dishes and scheduled my days around her visit. That Thanksgiving, I joined a community meal for the first time, volunteering to serve others who found themselves alone for the holiday. While dishing out mashed potatoes, I checked my phone to find Amanda had posted photos from Greg and Jessica's elegantly catered gathering, with the caption, "So thankful for family time." Perhaps most painful was the evening I overheard Amanda refer to Jessica as Mum, while on a video call with college friends. She was visiting for the weekend and didn't realize I was in the hallway. My mum's taking me shopping tomorrow for interview clothes, she said casually. She has amazing taste and knows all the best stores. I quietly retreated to my bedroom where the weight of her words crushed me. Despite these heartbreaks, I continued supporting Amanda financially and emotionally through college. I sent care packages during finals, maintained her health insurance, helped edit papers over the phone, and celebrated every achievement with genuine pride. When she made Dean's List, I framed the certificate and hung it prominently in our living room, though I noticed she never mentioned my display to her friends who visited. During her senior year, I suggested we take a mother-daughter trip after graduation, something modest but meaningful to celebrate her achievement. Amanda seemed hesitant, mentioning that Greg and Jessica were planning a family trip to Europe that summer. But we could maybe do something small before that, she offered in a tone that sounded more obligatory than enthusiastic. I backed away from the suggestion, saying we could figure it out later, though I had already researched affordable options and started saving. I attended her graduation ceremony alone, arriving early to secure a decent seat. Greg, Jessica, and the twins arrived as a coordinated unit in matching colours, settling into reserved seating near the front. As I watched Amanda accept her diploma, my heart swelled with pride for the remarkable young woman she had become, even as I recognised how much of her journey had happened away from me. After graduation, Amanda moved to Chicago for an entry-level position at a marketing firm. The job was secured through one of Jessica's friends, though Amanda's qualifications had earned her the opportunity. I helped her research apartments online, offering advice about neighbourhoods and budgets. I attended her graduation ceremony, sitting several rows back from Greg's family, who had secured prime seating near the front. After the ceremony, during the chaotic meeting of families, I noticed how Amanda introduced me separately from my family when referring to Greg, Jessica, and the twins. It was a small distinction, but one that highlighted my increasingly peripheral role. When Amanda was settled in Chicago, I planned a weekend visit, staying at an affordable hotel and asking her to choose activities she'd enjoy. We had a pleasant, if somewhat reserved time together with Amanda, checking her phone frequently and mentioning several times how busy her new job kept her. When I left, she gave me a quick hug and promised to call soon, though 2 weeks passed before I heard from her. 6 months into her new job, Amanda mentioned a co-worker named Daniel whom she'd started dating. From her descriptions, I pieced together that he came from a privileged background similar to Jessica's family. His parents owned multiple properties, including a lake house where Amanda spent several weekends. His father held an executive position at a financial institution and his mother chaired charity galas. I met Daniel briefly when they passed through town on their way to a friend's wedding. The visit lasted just under 2 hours at a restaurant Daniel selected, where he insisted on paying despite my protests. He was polite but distant, asking few questions about me or my life. Amanda seemed hyper-aware of his reactions, adjusting her behaviour to align with his preferences in subtle ways I recognised from my own younger self. As their relationship progressed, Amanda's already limited communication with me decreased further. Holidays that I'd hoped might bring her home instead found her with Daniel's family at their various properties. Christmas cards arrived showing her smiling with his large extended family in coordinated outfits. After nearly 2 years of dating, I received a Sunday evening phone call from Amanda. Her voice bubbled with excitement as she announced, "Daniel proposed last night, we're engaged." I expressed genuine happiness for her, asking about the proposal details and her ring. As she described the elaborate rooftop arrangement Daniel had planned complete with photographer and champagne, I scribbled wedding planning ideas on a notepad, anticipating she might want my input. "Dad is thrilled," she continued. "We called his family first since we were at Daniel's parents' anniversary party when Daniel decided to share the news." The sequence of calls wasn't lost on me, but I focused instead on her happiness. "I'd love to help with wedding plans," I offered cautiously. "Whatever you need, even just a sounding board for ideas." "Oh, that's so sweet," Amanda replied. But Jessica has already connected me with her event planner, and Daniel's mum has tons of contacts for venues since she plans charity events. But I'll definitely keep you updated. In the months that followed, my knowledge of wedding plans came primarily through Amanda's social media posts. I saw photos of venue tours, floral consultations, and cake tastings that included Jessica Daniels' mother and occasionally Greg, but never an invitation for me. When I texted gentle inquiries, Amanda would respond with brief updates that suggested decisions had already been made. Through mutual friends, I learned the wedding would be held at an exclusive country club with connections to Daniel's family. The budget apparently exceeded 6 figures, with Greg proudly telling acquaintances that he was handling the father of the bride responsibilities. I wondered if those responsibilities included acknowledging that another parent had raised his daughter through daily challenges while he enjoyed weekends and vacations. 3 months before the wedding, a formal invitation arrived in my mailbox. The thick cream envelope contained a beautifully letterpressed card inviting me to the marriage of Amanda Louise and Daniel Robert. A small handwritten note from Amanda was tucked inside. "Hope you can make it, Mum. Let me know if you need hotel recommendations." The impersonal tone struck me as odd for a mother of the bride, but I promptly sent my acceptance and booked a modestly priced hotel room for the weekend. With the invitation confirmed, I began searching for the perfect dress. Despite my limited budget, I splurged on a flattering blue gown that cost more than I usually spent on 3 months of clothing. I researched mother of the bride traditions, wondering if Amanda would want me to participate in a special way. When I broached the subject via text, she responded vaguely that we would figure all that out closer to the date. I created a special savings account and deposited what I could from each paycheck, hoping to give Amanda and Daniel a wedding gift that wouldn't seem paltry compared to what others might provide. I researched meaningful but affordable keepsakes that might become family heirlooms, wanting my contribution to have significance beyond its monetary value. As the wedding date approached, I noticed Amanda becoming increasingly distant. My calls went to voicemail and texts received delayed brief responses. I attributed her behavior to pre-wedding stress, remembering my own overwhelming feelings before marrying Greg decades earlier. Still, I couldn't shake the sense that something beyond normal bridal anxiety was affecting our communication. I had no idea that my worst fears would be confirmed when Amanda finally visited my apartment 1 month before her wedding day. The knock on my door came at exactly 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I'd spent the morning cleaning my apartment and preparing Amanda's favourite cookies, hoping to create a warm, relaxing environment for what I assumed was a pre-wedding visit. Amanda looked beautiful, but tense when I opened the door. Her engagement ring caught the light as she gave me a quick hug before settling stiffly on my couch. She declined cookies and tea, saying she'd just had lunch with Greg and Jessica before driving over. "The wedding plans are coming together beautifully," she said, scrolling through photos on her phone. "The florist Jessica recommended is amazing, and Daniel's mum found the perfect band." I nodded appreciatively at each image, asking questions and complimenting her choices. For a moment, it felt almost normal between us, the shared excitement of her special day, bridging our growing distance. "I wanted to talk to you about the seating arrangements," Amanda said, suddenly setting her phone down and avoiding my eyes. "Of course," I replied, assuming she wanted advice on handling divorced parents at a wedding. "I'm happy to be seated wherever makes the most sense." Amanda twisted her engagement ring nervously. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss. Dad and Jessica will be sitting at the head table with Daniel's parents and us." I nodded, having expected this traditional arrangement. "That makes perfect sense. I'll be fine at a family table." "The thing is," Amanda continued, her words coming faster now, "we were hoping you'd be okay with sitting at a table with some of my friends from college. They're really nice, and you'd have people to talk to." The implication hung in the air between us. I wasn't considered part of the family table arrangement. "I'm not sure I understand," I said slowly. "I'm your mother." Amanda sighed, a sound I recognized from her teenage years, when she felt I was being deliberately obtuse. Dad is paying for most of the wedding, and he and Jessica have been really involved in the planning. Daniel's family is pretty traditional and they expect certain arrangements. Traditional usually includes the mother of the bride, I pointed out quietly. It's just that having both sets of parents at the head table would be awkward. Jessica has been like a mum to me too, especially these last few years, and she's done so much for the wedding. Each word struck like a physical blow. I struggled to maintain my composure as Amanda continued explaining. We just think it would be less complicated this way. Dad will be giving the main toast, of course, since he's the father of the bride and is hosting. Jessica's helping coordinate everything the day of with the planner. And what role did you envision for me? I asked, my voice barely audible. Amanda looked genuinely confused by the question. You'll be there as a guest mum, to celebrate with me. As a guest, I repeated. Not as your mother who raised you, who was there every single day, who sacrificed everything to make sure you had stability and love. Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic? Amanda's tone sharpened. This is exactly why we're trying to keep things simple. My friends all managed to have weddings with divorced parents without all this emotion. I felt a physical pain in my chest as though something was cracking open. I see. There's one more thing, Amanda added, seemingly encouraged by my quiet response. The rehearsal dinner will just be the wedding party and immediate family. Since you're not in the wedding party, I'm not invited to the rehearsal dinner, I finished for her. It's just easier this way, and the guest list is already so large with Daniel's family and all their connections. Is there anything else I should know? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, distant and hollow. Amanda hesitated, then added, We'd prefer if you didn't bring a date. The seating is really tight, and since you're not seeing anyone serious, the irony might have made me laugh if I weren't fighting back tears. I hadn't dated in years, having devoted my life to raising Amanda. The date I might have brought would have been my sister for moral support. Amanda, I said carefully, do you understand what you're asking? You want me, your mother who raised you alone, while your father built a new family to sit with strangers at your wedding. You're excluding me from family events and photos. You're asking me to pretend I'm not really your parent. You're twisting everything. Amanda stood up, flustered. This isn't about you, it's my wedding day and I just want everything to go smoothly. Is that too much to ask? Can't you just be happy for me and not make this difficult? I felt something shift inside me, a lifetime of accommodation reaching its breaking point. I have always put your happiness first. From the moment your father left, I have sacrificed everything for you. I'm not asking to control your wedding. I'm asking to be acknowledged as your mother. You are being acknowledged. You have an invitation. You have a seat. What more do you want? Respect, I said simply. The respect a mother deserves. Amanda gathered her purse, clearly frustrated. I really thought you'd be more understanding. Everyone said you'd make this difficult, but I defended you. Everyone? You mean Greg and Jessica? The people who get to be family, while I'm relegated to the status of distant acquaintance. I need to go. We can talk when you're being more reasonable. Amanda moved toward the door. Just let me know if you can't handle the seating arrangement so we can adjust the numbers. Amanda, I called as she reached for the doorknob. Do you really not see how hurtful this is? She paused briefly. What's hurtful is you not supporting my choices. This isn't personal, Mum. It's just how formal weddings work when parents are divorced. After she left, I sat motionless on my couch for nearly an hour, her words echoing in my head. This isn't personal. But it was. It was the most personal rejection I could imagine. I moved to my bedroom and opened my closet, touching the blue dress I'd purchased for the wedding. Tears finally came as I sank to the floor, the full weight of years of diminishment crushing down on me. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the accumulated pain of watching my daughter gradually erase me from her narrative, while embracing the carefully curated family Greg had created. That night, sleepless and aching, I faced a truth I'd been avoiding for years. In my determination to never make Amanda choose between her parents, I had taught her that my dignity was negotiable. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pulled out photo albums chronicling Amanda's childhood, tracing our journey from her first steps to high school graduation. Each image told the story of our daily life together, science projects completed at the kitchen table, Halloween costumes sewn late into the night, Christmas mornings when I'd wrapped dollar store gifts with extra ribbon to make them special. As dawn broke, I moved to my small desk and opened a notebook. On one page, I listed everything I had sacrificed for Amanda: career advancement opportunities, declined because they required travel relationships, not pursued, because my focus was parenting, retirement savings, depleted for her education, personal interests, set aside for lack of time and resources. On the facing page, I wrote down moments when my role as Amanda's mother had been diminished or erased: Greg taking credit for her accomplishments, Jessica stepping into mother-daughter activities, Amanda's growing embarrassment about our modest lifestyle, and now the final indignity of being treated as an afterthought at her wedding. The exercise wasn't about keeping score, but about seeing clearly what had happened over the years. In my determination to be the bigger person and never speak ill of Greg, I had allowed my daughter to believe that his narrative about our family was the only one that mattered. By never demanding recognition for my sacrifices, I had inadvertently taught her they were worthless. With this clarity came a decision that felt both terrifying and necessary. I would not attend Amanda's wedding as a second-class guest. After decades of putting everyone else first, it was time to honor my own worth. I crafted a brief, dignified note declining the invitation. I avoided accusations or emotional language, simply stating that I had decided not to attend. I signed it with "Love, Mum," and placed it in an envelope addressed to Amanda. After mailing the RSVP, I went directly to a travel agency, something I hadn't done in 20 years. The agent looked surprised when I said I wanted a beach vacation for one departing the day before Amanda's wedding and returning a week later. Somewhere quiet, I specified, with a nice view and good books. She showed me options for resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean. I selected a small adults-only property in Aruba, well beyond my normal budget, but manageable if I used a portion of my modest retirement fund. For once, I didn't calculate the long-term cost or worry about fiscal responsibility. This wasn't an indulgence. It was self-preservation. That evening, I texted Amanda a simple message: "I've given your wedding arrangements considerable thought and have decided not to attend. I've mailed back the RSVP card. I wish you and Daniel happiness in your marriage. Love, Mum." Her response came within minutes. "What? You can't be serious. Call me right now." I didn't call. Instead, I turned off my phone and took a long bath, allowing myself to feel both the grief of missing my daughter's wedding and the relief of standing up for myself. The next morning, my phone showed 8 missed calls from Amanda and 3 from Greg. I listened to the voicemails, which ranged from Amanda's initial shock to Greg's condescending lecture about mature behavior and putting Amanda's happiness first. I composed a single email addressed to both of them. "I understand you're upset by my decision." This wasn't made lightly or to cause drama. Amanda made it clear that my role in the wedding would be that of a distant acquaintance rather than her mother. While I respect her right to plan her wedding as she chooses, I have the right to decline participating in an event where my relationship with my daughter is not honoured. I will be away during the wedding week and unreachable by phone. I truly wish Amanda a beautiful day and a happy marriage. The fallout was immediate and intense. Jessica sent a lengthy text about how I was ruining Amanda's special day with selfish behaviour. Several of Amanda's friends, whom I'd known since elementary school, messaged to express their disappointment. Even my sister questioned whether I was overreacting, suggesting I should Just suck it up for one day, for Amanda's sake. Only my oldest friend Martha stood firmly in my corner. It's about time, she said when I told her my decision. You've been a doormat for Greg and his perfect new family for too long. Amanda needs to understand that actions have consequences. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I focused on practical preparations for my trip. I bought new swimsuits, something I hadn't done in years. I selected books I'd been wanting to read but never had time for. I arranged for a neighbour to water my plants and collect my mail. With each small action, I felt a strange mix of emotions: sadness at the broken relationship with my daughter, fear about the final severing this decision might represent, but also increasingly a sense of reclaiming something essential that I had gradually surrendered over the years. 3 days before the wedding, Amanda made a final attempt, leaving a voicemail that hit all the familiar notes of our dynamic. "Mum, you're embarrassing me by doing this. Everyone's asking where you'll be, and I have to explain that you're choosing not to come. Dad says he'll even arrange for you to have a seat at the family table if that's what this is really about. Please don't ruin this for me." It was telling that even her concession positioned me as the problem to be managed rather than a parent to be honoured. The offer to adjust seating felt like permission to join a club that should have included me automatically. I packed my suitcase while listening to the message, more certain than ever that my decision, though painful, was necessary. As I locked my apartment and headed to the airport, I felt lighter than I had in years, despite the heaviness in my heart. For the first time since Greg left, I was taking a trip that wasn't tied to Amanda's activities or needs. I was spending money on myself rather than stretching every dollar to compensate for the lifestyle Greg provided. The plane lifted off the runway, carrying me away from the role I had played for so long: the accommodating ex-wife, the self-sacrificing mother, the woman who swallowed her pride again and again to keep peace for her child's sake. As we ascended through the clouds, I allowed myself to wonder who I might be beyond those limiting definitions. The resort was everything the brochure had promised: white sand beaches, clear turquoise water, and a small, peaceful atmosphere far removed from my everyday life. My room featured a private balcony overlooking the ocean, where I spent that first evening watching the sunset with a sense of surreal detachment. After decades of considering myself only in relation to others, particularly Amanda, the solitude felt both foreign and strangely comforting. That night, alone in my room, reality crashed down. I sobbed into my pillow, grieving not just the wedding I was missing, but the relationship I had lost. Through years of unbalanced devotion, I cried for the young mother I had been believing that selfless sacrifice would eventually be recognized and appreciated. I cried for Amanda, who had absorbed the message that my love was less valuable than Greg and Jessica's more financially demonstrative version. The next morning, puffy-eyed and exhausted, I forced myself to the beach, settling under an umbrella with a book I couldn't focus on. An older couple in their 70s set up chairs nearby, and the woman smiled warmly at me. "First day?" she asked, arranging her beach bag. I nodded, attempting a smile. "You look like you could use this more than me," her husband said, offering me a mimosa from their small cooler. "Best remedy for whatever's troubling you." Something about their kindness broke through my careful composure. Before I knew it, I was sharing my story with these strangers. Robert and Eleanor married 52 years and on their annual vacation from Michigan. Instead of the judgment I'd faced from family and friends, Eleanor reached over and squeezed my hand. "Good for you," she said firmly. It took me until I was 60 to learn that lesson. "What lesson?" I asked. "That loving someone doesn't mean becoming invisible. That being a good mother doesn't require erasing yourself." Robert nodded sagely. "Our daughter went through a phase where she was embarrassed by us, by our modest lifestyle compared to her in-laws. We kept showing up anyway, but we never let her treat us as less than. Eventually, she came around. Their understanding was a balm I hadn't known I needed. We spent the day together, sharing meals and stories. They became my impromptu support system as Saturday, the wedding day, approached. When the day arrived, I woke early, immediately aware of its significance. Back home, Amanda would be getting ready with Jessica and her bridesmaids. Greg would be preparing to walk her down the aisle and dance the father-daughter dance. And I, who had taught her to walk and bandaged her knees and helped her navigate adolescence, was thousands of miles away by my own choice. Eleanor and Robert invited me to join them for all my meals that day, creating distractions with sightseeing and snorkeling. But in quiet moments, I checked my phone where Amanda's social media showed carefully staged preparation photos, Jessica adjusting Amanda's veil, Greg looking proud in his tuxedo, the extended family gathering for pre-ceremony pictures. Each image reinforced that I had made the right decision, however painful. In none of these carefully orchestrated moments would I have been anything but an awkward addition, a reminder of a less polished chapter in their family story. That evening, as Amanda was likely sharing her first dance with Daniel, I sat on the beach with Eleanor and Robert, watching the stars emerge over the ocean. Eleanor handed me a small notebook. "Write it down," she suggested. "Not the hurt, though, that's real too. Write down what you want for yourself now, who you want to become beyond being Amanda's mother." The question startled me. For so long, motherhood had been my primary identity, the lens through which I viewed every decision. The idea that I could want things purely for myself seemed almost foreign. Slowly, I began to list long-forgotten dreams and interests. Graduate school courses I'd once considered, places I'd wanted to visit, hobbies abandoned for lack of time. The simple pleasure of redecorating my apartment to reflect my taste rather than preserving Amanda's childhood memories. As the list grew, something shifted inside me. The pain didn't disappear, but alongside it grew a tentative excitement about possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider for decades. The remainder of my vacation became a gentle exploration of this emerging self. I tried snorkeling for the first time. I attended a cooking class focusing on local cuisine. I read novels instead of parenting articles. I slept without setting an alarm and ate meals when I was hungry rather than according to someone else's schedule. When I returned home, my apartment felt different, smaller somehow, after the expansiveness of my week away. Amanda had called several times during my absence, leaving progressively shorter messages that ranged from angry to hurt to resigned. Greg had emailed a lengthy lecture about maternal responsibility that I deleted without finishing. On my coffee table sat a stack of wedding announcements sent to neighbours and distant relatives, including one addressed to me that had arrived during my absence. The formal card showed Amanda and Daniel beaming at the camera, surrounded by their wedding party and both sets of parents. Greg and Jessica stood prominently beside Amanda, while Daniel's parents flanked him. Looking at their perfect smiles, I felt an unexpected calm. The painful exclusion I had anticipated had indeed occurred, documented for posterity. By removing myself from the event, I had at least maintained my dignity rather than participating in my own diminishment. The following weeks brought silence from Amanda. I returned to work, but with a new perspective. I enrolled in an evening graduate course I'd been considering for years. I joined a book club at the local library. I replaced Amanda's childhood bedroom furniture with a comfortable reading chair and desk, transforming the space into an office for myself. 3 months after the wedding, a text from Amanda appeared on my phone, "Back from honeymoon. Can we talk?" I agreed to coffee at a neutral location, a cafe halfway between our homes. When Amanda arrived, I was struck by how adult she looked, tan from her honeymoon, with a new sophistication in her appearance. "You changed your hair," she said, noticing the shorter cut I'd gotten after returning from Aruba. "I did," I confirmed. It was time for something new. An awkward silence fell between us, neither of us quite knowing how to bridge the chasm that had formed. "I was really hurt that you missed my wedding," Amanda finally said, her voice catching. "Everyone kept asking where you were." "I was hurt too," I replied calmly, hurt that my role as your mother was reduced to that of a distant acquaintance who should be grateful for whatever accommodation was offered. Amanda looked down at her coffee. I didn't see it that way. I know you didn't. That's part of the problem. Dad says you were being selfish. I imagine he does, I said, maintaining my composure. Greg has always been comfortable defining my worth according to his terms. Another silence stretched between us. I noticed Amanda twisting her new wedding ring, a gesture reminiscent of how she'd fidget with her friendship bracelets as a child, when uncomfortable. I missed you, she finally admitted. Even with everything else going perfectly, it felt wrong that you weren't there. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the first acknowledgement that my absence had mattered. It was a small opening, and I decided to step carefully through it rather than demand the full recognition I deserved. I missed being there, I said truthfully, but I needed to honour myself as much as I've always honoured you. The conversation that followed was careful but honest. I explained that I would always love her, but could no longer accept being treated as secondary in her life. She shared her perspective, including pressures from Greg, Jessica, and Daniel's family about wedding traditions. We didn't resolve everything in that single meeting, but we established a foundation for a new, more balanced relationship. In the months that followed, Amanda and I rebuilt our connection slowly. She came for dinner at my apartment and noticed the changes I'd made, commenting with surprise on my new interests and activities. I met Daniel again this time with clearer boundaries about how I expected to be treated. When they invited me to dinner at their new condo, I accepted but brought my sister as my +1, subtly establishing that I had support and wasn't desperate for inclusion. A year after the wedding, during a weekend visit, Amanda found the photo albums I'd looked through the night I decided not to attend her wedding. She spent hours going through them, asking questions about memories she'd forgotten or never known. "You really did everything for me, didn't you?" she asked quietly, looking at a Halloween photo where I'd clearly stayed up all night, creating an elaborate costume. "I did what mothers do," I replied. "I put you first, but I learned that always putting someone else first teaches them that you come last." Amanda nodded slowly, a new understanding in her eyes. "I think I get that now. Daniel and I are talking about starting a family soon, and I've been thinking a lot about what kind of mother I want to be." "You'll be wonderful," I assured her, "and I'll be here to support you as a mother and grandmother who values herself as much as she values her family." That evening, as Amanda prepared to leave, she hugged me tightly, longer than usual. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for the wedding, for everything. I didn't see what was happening until you refused to accept it anymore. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is set boundaries," I told her. It took me 56 years to learn that lesson. As I watched her drive away, I felt the delicate balance we were creating, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than my constant accommodation. It wasn't perfect, and Greg and Jessica's influence remained strong in Amanda's life, but my place as her mother was no longer negotiable or contingent on my willingness to accept less than I deserved. In choosing myself that day, by saying no to the wedding and yes to my own worth, I had paradoxically given Amanda an invaluable gift, the example of a woman who finally learned that self-respect is not selfish, but essential. That lesson, more than any other, was the true legacy I hoped to pass on to my daughter as she prepared to become a mother herself. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your dignity, even when it meant disappointing someone you love? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength through life's challenges. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to stand firm in your own worth. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to honor yourself in all your relationships.